Catherine stood before the ornate mirror in her private dressing room at Kensington Palace, her reflection showing a woman who had traveled an extraordinary journey from a middle-class girl in Berkshire to becoming one of the most beloved members of the British royal family. The morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting a warm glow across the room, filled with memories and moments that had shaped her life over the past decade. Today was different. Today carried a weight that pressed gently, but persistently, on her shoulders. The royal dresser, Maria, moved quietly around the room, preparing the elements that would transform Catherine from a mother having breakfast with her children into the Princess of Wales, who would represent centuries of tradition and duty. But it was the small, velvet-lined box sitting on the antique dressing table that drew Catherine's attention like a magnet. Inside that box lay the Cartier Halo Tiara, a piece of jewelry that was far more than diamonds and platinum. It was a bridge between generations, a symbol of trust, and a testament to the quiet revolution Catherine had brought to the monarchy simply by being herself. The tiara had been waiting for this moment, waiting for her, though neither of them had known it years ago when she first stepped into royal life. Catherine's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the box. The trembling wasn't from nervousness about wearing such an expensive piece of jewelry. She had long since grown accustomed to the weight of priceless gems. Instead, it was the emotional significance that made her pause. This tiara represented Queen Elizabeth's personal approval, a grandmother's blessing passed down through the most precious items in the royal collection. The story of how this moment came to be began long before Catherine ever imagined herself as a princess. It started in a small village where a young girl named Catherine Middleton learned the values that would one day reshape how the world viewed royalty. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, had built their lives around hard work, family dinners, and the belief that kindness mattered more than status. These lessons, learned around a kitchen table in Bucklebury, would prove to be the foundation upon which Catherine would build her royal life. When Catherine first met Prince William at the University of St. Andrews, she was studying art history and living the typical life of a university student. She had no way of knowing that the shy, sandy-haired boy in her residence hall would one day be her husband, or that their chance encounters in the dining hall would lead to a love story watched by millions around the world. William was just William to her then, not the future king, not the prince who had lost his mother in the most public and tragic way, just a young man trying to find his place in the world. Their relationship developed slowly, built on shared laughter, quiet moments, and the kind of deep friendship that forms the strongest foundation for lasting love. Catherine became someone William could be himself with, away from the constant scrutiny and expectations that had followed him since birth. She brought normalcy to his world, while he introduced her to a life of duty and service that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. The early years of their relationship were marked by careful navigation of public interest and private desire. Catherine learned to live under the watchful eyes of photographers and journalists, developing the grace and composure that would later become her trademark. She watched William struggle with the balance between his desire for privacy and his obligation to public service, and she began to understand the unique challenges that came with loving someone whose life belonged as much to the nation as it did to himself. When their relationship faced its most difficult test during their brief separation in 2007, Catherine discovered reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed. The media attention was intense and often cruel, but she handled it with a dignity that impressed even William's most protective advisors. During those months apart, both Catherine and William realized that their love was strong enough to withstand the pressures that had destroyed other royal relationships. The reconciliation brought them closer together and made them both more certain that they were meant to face the future side by side. William began to see in Catherine not just the woman he loved, but the partner he needed to fulfill his destiny as a future king. Catherine, meanwhile, began to understand that loving William meant accepting a role that would require her to transform from a private person into a public figure whose every action would be scrutinized and judged. The proposal came in 2010 during a trip to Kenya, a place that held special meaning for both of them. William had carried his mother's engagement ring in his backpack for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. When he finally knelt down beside a crystal-clear lake, surrounded by the vast African landscape, Catherine's tears weren't just from joy at the proposal itself, but from the realization that her life was about to change in ways she could barely imagine. The engagement announcement sent shockwaves of excitement around the world. Here was a prince who had chosen love over duty, a commoner who had captured the heart of a future king. The story captured imaginations everywhere because it felt like a fairy tale, but Catherine knew that fairy tales ended at the wedding, while real life was just beginning. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of preparation, protocol lessons, and the kind of media attention that would have overwhelmed the lesser person. Catherine threw herself into learning everything she needed to know about royal life, from the proper way to curtsy to various members of the family, to understanding the complex web of relationships and responsibilities that define the monarchy. Through it all, Queen Elizabeth watched with keen interest. The Queen had seen many people enter the royal family over her long reign, and she had learned to spot those who would thrive in royal life versus those who would struggle against its constraints. In Catherine, she saw something special, a young woman who approached her new role not with entitlement or resentment, but with genuine respect for the institution and a desire to serve. The wedding day itself, April 29th, 2011, was watched by an estimated 2 billion people worldwide. Catherine walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey wearing the Cartier halo tiara, loaned to her by the Queen for the occasion. It was a significant gesture, one that royal watchers immediately recognized as a sign of the Queen's approval and affection for her new granddaughter-in-law. But the choice of the halo tiara was about more than just its beauty or its royal provenance. The Queen had selected it specifically for Catherine because she believed it reflected the young woman's character. Elegant, but not ostentatious, traditional, but not outdated, significant, but not overwhelming. It was a tiara for a woman who would modernize the monarchy not through dramatic gestures, but through quiet competence and genuine warmth. As Catherine walked down that endless aisle, she felt the weight of the tiara on her head and understood that she was carrying more than just diamonds. She was carrying the hopes of a nation, the trust of a family, and the legacy of women who had worn similar pieces before her. The moment was both terrifying and exhilarating, marking the end of her old life and the beginning of something entirely new. The wedding reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and the kind of joy that comes from witnessing true love celebrated in grand style. But for Catherine, the most meaningful moment came during a quiet conversation with the Queen, who took her new granddaughter-in-law aside and spoke to her about the responsibilities and privileges that lay ahead. "You're going to make mistakes," the Queen told her gently. "We all do. But I believe you have the strength and the character to learn from them and to use them to become better. The tiara you wore today has been part of this family for generations, and I hope that someday you'll pass it on to someone who understands its true value the way you do." Those words stayed with Catherine as she and William began their married life together. They moved to Anglesey, where William continued his service as a search and rescue helicopter pilot, and Catherine learned to be a military wife in a small Welsh community. It was during this time that she truly began to understand what it meant to put duty before personal preference. As she watched William risk his life to save others while she waited at home, managing her anxiety and supporting him in the quiet way that would become her signature. The birth of Prince George in 2013 marked another significant transition in Catherine's life. Suddenly, she was not just a princess, but the mother of a future king. The responsibility was overwhelming, but Catherine found strength in the same values her parents had taught her, that children needed love, stability, and the chance to be themselves before they were anything else. Queen Elizabeth watched with approval as Catherine navigated early motherhood in the public eye. The young woman who had once been criticized for not having a proper job had found her true calling in balancing royal duties with raising the next generation of royals. She approached both roles with the same thoughtful preparation and genuine care that had impressed the Queen from the beginning. As Princess Charlotte was born in 2015, followed by Prince Louis in 2018, Catherine's confidence in her role grew stronger. She had found ways to honor royal tradition while bringing her own touch to everything she did. Her children were clearly thriving under her care, growing up with a sense of both their special position and their fundamental humanity. The Queen began to trust Catherine with more significant responsibilities, including representing the royal family at important events and taking on patronages that reflected her personal interests and expertise. Catherine's work with early childhood development became particularly close to her heart, as she used her platform to highlight issues that mattered to families across Britain and the Commonwealth. Through pregnancies, public appearances, family celebrations, and private struggles, Catherine had worn many pieces from the royal jewelry collection. But the Cartier Halo Tiara remained special, appearing at only the most significant occasions. Each time she wore it, Catherine felt a deeper connection to the woman who had entrusted it to her, and to the long line of royal women who had understood that jewelry was never just decoration, but a form of communication, a way of honoring the past while embracing the future. Now, more than a decade after that first wedding day, Catherine understood the true weight of the Queen's trust in ways her younger self could never have imagined. She had proven herself not just as a wife and mother, but as a working royal who brought fresh energy to ancient traditions. The halo tiara had become a symbol of her journey, a physical reminder of how far she had come and how much further she would go. As she prepared for today's event, Catherine reflected on the lessons she had learned and the woman she had become. The nervous girl who had once worried about which fork to use at royal dinners had evolved into a confident princess who could represent her country with grace while never losing sight of what truly mattered: family, service, and the quiet dignity that had first attracted the Queen's attention all those years ago. The Cartier Halo Tiara had its own remarkable story, one that began long before Catherine ever entered the picture. Created in 1936 by the prestigious French jewelry house Cartier, it was originally commissioned as a gift for the Queen Mother, then the Duchess of York, on her wedding to King George VI. The timing was particularly significant. This was during a period when the British royal family was modernizing its image, and the sleek, geometric design of the tiara reflected this new direction. Cartier had been the preferred jeweler of royalty and aristocracy for decades, known for their innovative designs and exceptional craftsmanship. The Halo Tiara was one of their masterpieces from this era, featuring 739 brilliant cut diamonds and 149 baguette diamonds arranged in a stunning scrolling design that seemed to capture light from every angle. The platinum setting was revolutionary for its time, allowing the diamonds to appear to float in delicate bands of light around the wearer's head. When the Queen Mother first wore the tiara, it represented more than just royal splendor. The 1930s were a time of great change and uncertainty in Britain and around the world. The Great Depression had left its mark on every level of society, and the royal family was working to maintain relevance while showing appropriate sensitivity to the struggles of their subjects. The Halo Tiara, with its modern design and brilliant sparkle, suggested a monarchy that was looking forward rather than clinging to the past. The Queen Mother treasured the tiara throughout her long life, wearing it to countless state occasions, gala dinners, and family celebrations. Each appearance added to its history and significance within the royal collection. When she passed away in 2002, the tiara was inherited by Queen Elizabeth II, who understood its sentimental value as well as its artistic merit. For Queen Elizabeth, the Halo Tiara represented her mother's legacy of grace, resilience, and unwavering commitment to duty. The Queen Mother had lived through 2 world wars, supported her husband through the abdication crisis, and helped guide the monarchy through some of its most challenging periods. When the Queen looked at the tiara, she saw not just beautiful jewelry, but a tangible connection to a woman who had shown her how to balance personal feelings with public responsibilities. The decision to lend the tiara to Catherine for her wedding was not made lightly. The Queen had other options in the royal collection: tiaras with longer histories, more famous provenance, or greater monetary value. But she chose the halo tiara specifically because she believed it suited Catherine's personality and would set the right tone for her entry into the royal family. The Queen had been watching Catherine carefully during her long courtship with William, and she had been impressed by what she observed. Here was a young woman who didn't seek the spotlight, but handled it with grace when it found her. Catherine had shown respect for royal traditions while bringing her own authentic warmth to every interaction. She seemed to understand instinctively that being royal was about service rather than privilege. When a queen's dresser first brought the halo tiara to Catherine for fitting, the young bride-to-be was overwhelmed by both its beauty and its significance. The tiara was lighter than she had expected, but she could feel the weight of history in every diamond. Catherine spent hours learning how to wear it properly, how to move naturally while keeping it secure, and how to carry herself so that it would photograph beautifully from every angle. The wedding day arrived with typical British weather: overcast skies that occasionally broke apart to reveal brilliant sunshine. As Catherine prepared for the ceremony, the halo tiara was placed on her head by the Queen's own dresser, a woman who had been handling royal jewelry for decades. The moment was deeply emotional for everyone in the room, as they all understood they were witnessing history in the making. Catherine's wedding dress, designed by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen, had been created specifically to complement the halo tiara. The dress featured intricate lace work and a flowing train that would create a perfect backdrop for the tiara's brilliance. When Catherine saw herself fully dressed for the first time, she felt transformed, not just into a bride, but into a princess who was ready to take on everything that role would demand. The journey to Westminster Abbey was surreal for Catherine. Riding in the glass coach through streets lined with cheering crowds, she felt the tiara catch the light with every movement. The diamonds seemed to capture and reflect not just the sunshine, but the joy and excitement of the thousands of people who had come to witness this historic moment. Inside Westminster Abbey, as Catherine walked down the aisle, the halo tiara became part of one of the most watched moments in television history. Cameras captured every angle as it sparkled under the Abbey's lights. But for Catherine, the tiara was more than just a beautiful accessory. It was a symbol of the trust the Queen had placed in her and a reminder of the long line of royal women who had worn similar pieces to mark their own important moments. After the wedding, the halo tiara was carefully returned to the royal collection, but its connection to Catherine had been permanently established. Royal jewelry experts noted that the Queen's choice had been particularly meaningful. The tiara was valuable enough to show the importance of the occasion, but not so historically significant that it would overshadow the bride herself. In the months following the wedding, as Catherine began her new life as the Duchess of Cambridge, the halo tiara appeared in countless magazine articles, books about royal jewelry, and documentaries about the wedding. It had become famous in its own right, no longer just a piece from the royal collection, but a symbol of a modern fairy tale romance. But for Catherine, the real significance of the tiara became clearer as she grew into her royal role. The Queen began to share stories about the pieces in the royal collection, helping Catherine understand not just their monetary value, but their emotional and historical significance. The halo tiara, the Queen explained, had been her mother's favorite for evening events because it was elegant without being overwhelming, perfect for a woman who preferred to let her character rather than her jewelry make the strongest impression. As Catherine took on more royal duties, she began to appreciate the careful thought that went into every aspect of royal appearances, including jewelry selection. Each piece was chosen not just for its beauty, but for its appropriateness to the occasion, its historical significance, and the message it would send to the public and to other members of the royal family. The Queen began to allow Catherine to borrow other pieces from the collection for special occasions, always taking time to explain their history and significance. Catherine learned about tiaras that had been worn during coronations at state visits and during some of the most important moments in British history. But she always felt a special connection to the halo tiara, which had marked her transformation from Catherine Middleton into the Duchess of Cambridge. When Prince George was born in 2013, Catherine reflected on how the tiara had been present at the moment when her life truly began to change. She thought about the Queen Mother, who had worn it during her own years as a young royal wife and mother, navigating the challenges of raising children while fulfilling public duties. The tiara seemed to carry with it the wisdom and strength of the women who had worn it before. As Catherine's confidence in her royal role grew, so did her appreciation for the symbolic power of royal jewelry. She began to understand how the Queen used different pieces to send messages, wearing certain earrings to honor a visiting dignitary's country, choosing a particular brooch to mark an important anniversary, or selecting a specific tiara to signal the importance of an occasion. The halo tiara made its next significant appearance at a state banquet in 2017, when Catherine wore it to honor the visit of the King and Queen of Spain. Seeing herself in the mirror that evening, Catherine was struck by how different she felt from the nervous bride who had first worn it 6 years earlier. She had grown into the tiara, just as she had grown into her role as a senior member of the royal family. The Spanish Queen, Letizia, complimented Catherine on the tiara during dinner, noting its perfect balance of elegance and modernity. The two women, both commoners who had married into ancient monarchies, found common ground in their appreciation for how jewelry could honor tradition while reflecting contemporary style. It was a moment that reminded Catherine how her choices were watched and interpreted by people around the world. As Catherine's children grew older and began to accompany their parents to more formal events, Prince George showed particular fascination with his mother's tiaras. Catherine would let him examine the halo tiara carefully, teaching him about the craftsmanship and history behind such pieces. She wanted him to understand that these weren't just expensive decorations, but symbols of service and continuity that connected the royal family to British history and culture. Princess Charlotte, showing early signs of her great-grandmother's keen fashion sense, was drawn to the way the halo tiara sparkled and moved in the light. Catherine began to think about how someday, generations in the future, Charlotte might wear this same piece to mark her own important moments. The idea of that continuity, of being part of a chain of strong women supporting the monarchy, gave Catherine a deeper sense of purpose in her role. The Queen continued to entrust Catherine with increasingly important jewelry for significant occasions, but she always took special note when Catherine chose to wear the halo tiara. It had become, in many ways, Catherine's signature piece, the tiara that defined her style and reflected her personality better than any other piece in the collection. When the COVID-19 pandemic changed royal life dramatically in 2020, with most public engagements canceled or moved online, Catherine found herself missing the formal occasions that had provided opportunities to wear pieces like the halo tiara. The enforced break made her realize how much these ceremonial moments had come to mean to her, not just as opportunities to represent the royal family, but as connections to history and tradition that grounded her in her role. During one of their regular phone conversations during lockdown, the Queen mentioned to Catherine how much she missed seeing the jewelry collection in use. For both women, the pieces weren't meant to sit in vaults, but to be worn and appreciated to fulfill their purpose as symbols of royal tradition and continuity. The Queen suggested that when public life resumed, they should find more opportunities to showcase the collection's beauty and significance. As restrictions began to lift and royal engagements resumed, Catherine felt a particular excitement about wearing the halo tiara again. It had been almost 2 years since she had worn any major pieces from the collection, and she had gained a new appreciation for how these objects connected her to her role and to the long history of the monarchy. The anticipation of wearing the tiara again reminded Catherine of everything she had learned about being royal, about balancing personal desires with public duties, and about finding her own way to honor tradition while bringing something uniquely her own to the role. The halo tiara had been with her at the beginning of this journey, and it would continue to mark the most important moments as her story continued to unfold. The years following Catherine's wedding had brought unexpected challenges and profound changes to the royal family. The Queen, now in her 90s, had begun to delegate more responsibilities to the younger generation, and Catherine found herself taking on increasingly important roles within the monarchy. Each new responsibility required her to draw upon reserves of strength and wisdom she was still discovering within herself. When Prince Philip announced his retirement from public duties in 2017, it marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for the royal family. Catherine watched as the Queen, after more than 60 years of marriage, adapted to carrying out engagements without her husband by her side. The sight of her grandmother-in-law's quiet dignity in the face of such a significant change inspired Catherine and reinforced her understanding of what true royal service meant. During this period, Catherine's relationship with the Queen deepened in ways she had never expected. The two women began to have more private conversations about the challenges of royal life, the weight of public expectations, and the importance of maintaining perspective in the face of constant scrutiny. The Queen shared stories from her own early years as a wife and mother, helping Catherine understand that every generation of royals faced unique challenges while dealing with timeless dilemmas. The Queen's trust in Catherine became evident in the increasingly significant jewelry she was allowed to borrow for important occasions. Beyond the halo tiara, Catherine was now wearing pieces that had belonged to Queen Victoria, Queen Mary, and other legendary figures in royal history. Each time she put on these historic pieces, Catherine felt the weight of centuries of tradition and the responsibility to represent them worthily. The birth of Prince Louis in 2018 brought new challenges as Catherine learned to balance 3 young children with an ever-expanding schedule of royal duties. The Queen watched with admiration as Catherine managed to maintain her composure and effectiveness even when facing the exhaustion that comes with caring for a newborn while fulfilling public obligations. It was during this time that the Queen began to see in Catherine the qualities that would make her an exceptional queen consort in the future. Catherine's work with early childhood development had evolved from a personal interest into a defining passion that shaped much of her public role. She had spent years studying the latest research, visiting programs around the world, and developing her own understanding of how the earliest years of a child's life could impact their entire future. This work gave her a sense of purpose beyond royal duties and connected her to causes that felt deeply personal and meaningful. The Queen particularly appreciated how Catherine approached her charitable work with the same thoroughness and commitment that she brought to traditional royal duties. Catherine didn't just attend events and give speeches. She immersed herself in understanding the issues, building relationships with experts and practitioners, and using her platform to create real change. This approach reminded the Queen of her own early years, when she had worked to modernize the monarchy while maintaining its essential traditions. When the pandemic struck in 2020, Catherine's response further solidified the Queen's respect for her dedication and judgment. While the entire family adapted to lockdowns and virtual engagements, Catherine found innovative ways to continue her work with children and families. She participated in video calls with families struggling during lockdown, recorded messages of encouragement, and even helped with homeschooling initiatives. Her natural warmth translated beautifully to digital formats, helping the royal family maintain connections with the public during an unprecedented time. The Queen observed how Catherine handled the unique pressures of pandemic royal life, managing her own children's homeschooling while continuing her official duties, supporting William as he dealt with the stress of his father's COVID diagnosis, and maintaining her own mental health while being a source of strength for others. These challenges revealed character traits that confirmed the Queen's initial assessment of Catherine's suitability for royal life. During the long months of lockdown, Catherine often thought about the halo, tiara, sitting safely in the royal vaults. The enforced break from formal occasions gave her time to reflect on how much these ceremonial moments meant to her, not just as opportunities to wear beautiful jewelry, but as connections to history and tradition that grounded her in her role. She began to understand more deeply why the Queen had always taken such care in selecting appropriate pieces for different occasions. The restrictions also provided unexpected opportunities for Catherine to spend more time learning about the royal collection. The Queen arranged for private viewings of various pieces, sharing stories and insights that helped Catherine understand the emotional and historical significance of jewelry that might otherwise seem like mere decoration. These sessions deepened Catherine's appreciation for the responsibility that came with wearing such historic pieces. When Prince Philip passed away in April 2021, Catherine witnessed firsthand the Queen's remarkable strength and dignity in grief. The sight of the Queen sitting alone at her husband's funeral, due to pandemic restrictions, became an iconic image that captured both her personal loss and her unwavering commitment to duty. For Catherine, it was a powerful reminder of the sacrifices that royal life sometimes required and the inner strength needed to bear them gracefully. In the aftermath of Philip's death, Catherine took on additional responsibilities to support the Queen during her period of mourning. She increased her public engagements, took on new patronages, and worked closely with other senior royals to ensure that the monarchy continued to function effectively. The Queen noticed and appreciated these efforts, seeing in Catherine the kind of steady support that she had once received from Philip. The period following Philip's death also brought renewed speculation about the future of the monarchy and the roles that different family members would play as the Queen aged. Catherine found herself increasingly viewed as a future Queen consort, a prospect that both excited and intimidated her. She began to prepare more consciously for this eventual role, studying the examples of previous Queen consorts and thinking about how she might modernize the role while honoring its traditions. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee in 2022 provided an opportunity for the royal family to come together and celebrate 7 decades of service. For Catherine, the celebrations were particularly meaningful because they highlighted the kind of legacy she hoped to build during her own time in royal life. The Jubilee events showcased the Queen's evolution from a young princess into one of the most respected monarchs in British history, a transformation that gave Catherine hope for her own future development. During the Jubilee weekend, Catherine wore the halo tiara to a state banquet that brought together royals from around the world. Seeing herself reflected in the mirrors of Buckingham Palace's ballroom, surrounded by other crowned heads and dignitaries, Catherine felt a profound sense of belonging and purpose. The nervous girl who had once worried about protocol had evolved into a confident representative of the British monarchy. The international guests at the Jubilee noticed Catherine's poise and warmth, with several commenting privately to the Queen about how well Catherine had adapted to royal life. These conversations pleased the Queen enormously, as they confirmed her belief that Catherine would be an asset to the monarchy for decades to come. The Queen began to think more concretely about how to prepare Catherine for her future role as Queen consort. As 2022 continued, the Queen's health began to decline more noticeably, though she continued to fulfill her duties with characteristic determination. Catherine watched with deep admiration as the Queen adapted to physical limitations while maintaining her commitment to service. These observations taught Catherine valuable lessons about aging gracefully in public life and finding ways to continue contributing even when facing personal challenges. The Queen's last public appearance was at her Platinum Jubilee celebrations, where she appeared on the palace balcony to acknowledge the crowds. Catherine was standing nearby during this moment, and She felt both privileged to witness it and soberly aware that they were likely seeing the end of an era. The weight of future responsibilities felt heavier than ever, but Catherine also felt more prepared than she had ever been to shoulder them. During their final private conversation in August 2022, the Queen spoke to Catherine about the future with unusual directness. She expressed her complete confidence in Catherine's ability to support William and serve the country as Queen Consort. She also spoke specifically about the jewelry collection, indicating that she wanted Catherine to feel free to make it her own while respecting its history and significance. "The pieces are meant to be worn," the Queen told her, "but they're also meant to tell our story. You've already begun to understand that balance, and I trust you to continue developing it." The Queen specifically mentioned the halo tiara, noting that it had become associated with Catherine in the public mind and would always be remembered as part of her story. When the Queen passed away in September 2022, Catherine felt the loss both personally and professionally. She had lost a mentor, a grandmother figure, and a source of wisdom and strength that had guided her through more than a decade of royal life. The grief was profound, but so was Catherine's determination to honor the Queen's legacy through her own continued service. The period of mourning that followed the Queen's death was emotionally draining, but also revealing of Catherine's growth and strength. She supported William through his grief while managing her own, helped her children process the loss of their great-grandmother, and continued to fulfill her public duties with grace and dignity. The Queen would have been proud of how Catherine handled this most difficult period. During the lying-in state and funeral proceedings, Catherine wore pieces from the royal collection that paid tribute to the Queen's memory. Each choice was carefully considered, balancing personal grief with public representation. The jewelry became a way of communicating respect, continuity, and the promise of continued service to the nation. As Catherine prepared for her new role in the monarchy under King Charles III, she thought often about the lessons the Queen had taught her, both explicitly and through example. The halo tiara, still safely kept in the collection, had become more than just a piece she had worn on her wedding day. It was a symbol of her journey from nervous newcomer to confident princess, and it would continue to mark important moments in her ongoing story. The Queen's death had ended one chapter of Catherine's royal life, but it had also opened another. As the Princess of Wales, with William now heir to the throne, Catherine faced new challenges and opportunities. The foundation of strength, wisdom, and purpose that she had built over more than a decade would serve her well as she continued to grow into her role and prepare for the ultimate responsibility that lay ahead. Standing in her dressing room now, preparing to wear the halo tiara once again for a significant state occasion, Catherine could feel the presence of all the women who had influenced her journey. Her mother's practical wisdom, the Queen Mother's gracious resilience, and Queen Elizabeth's unwavering commitment to duty had all shaped the woman she had become. The tiara would carry all of these influences as she stepped forward into whatever came next. The state banquet tonight was unlike any other Catherine had attended. As the Princess of Wales, she now held a position of unprecedented importance within the royal hierarchy, and tonight's event would mark the first major state occasion since her new title had been bestowed. The visiting dignitaries, the diplomatic implications, and the media attention all combined to create an atmosphere of significance that Catherine could feel in every detail of her preparation. Maria, her dresser, handled the halo tiara with the reverence it deserved as she prepared to place it on Catherine's head. The tiara seemed to catch the light differently today, as if it too understood the weight of this moment. Catherine had worn it several times over the years, but each occasion had built upon the last, creating a legacy of moments that would define her relationship with this extraordinary piece. As the tiara was secured in place, Catherine felt the familiar sensation of transformation that came with wearing such significant royal jewelry. The diamonds seemed to anchor her to all the women who had worn similar pieces before her, while simultaneously launching her forward into her own unique future. She was no longer the Duchess who had borrowed pieces from the royal collection. She was the Princess of Wales who would help define what the collection meant for the next generation. The preparation ritual had become deeply meaningful to Catherine over the years. Each element, the careful application of makeup, the selection of the perfect dress, the placement of jewelry, was a form of meditation that helped her transition from private person to public representative. Tonight, wearing the halo tiara felt like putting on armor made of light, protection forged from beauty and tradition. Catherine's 3 children had watched parts of the preparation process, their eyes wide with wonder at their mother's transformation. Prince George, now old enough to understand the significance of such occasions, had asked thoughtful questions about why certain pieces were chosen for specific events. Princess Charlotte had been fascinated by the way the tiara made the light dance around the room. Prince Louis, still young enough to view everything as a magical game, had giggled with delight at how the diamonds sparkled. These moments with her children grounded Catherine in what truly mattered. Despite the grandeur and ceremony, despite the historic significance of the jewelry and the occasions, she was still a mother preparing for an evening away from her family. The children would be asleep when she returned, but they would wake tomorrow to a mother who had represented their family and their country with grace and dignity. William had stopped by the dressing room briefly before beginning his own preparations. The sight of Catherine in the halo tiara still moved him, even after all these years. He remembered the nervous bride who had first worn it, and he marveled at the confident princess she had become. Their shared look in the mirror captured a moment of understanding. They had traveled this journey together, supporting each other through every challenge and celebration. The drive to the palace through London's evening traffic gave Catherine time to reflect on how much the city had come to feel like home. When she first became engaged to William, London had seemed overwhelming, full of strangers and traditions she didn't understand. Now, as they passed familiar landmarks and she saw people gathering to catch glimpses of the royal cars, she felt a deep connection to the place and the people she served. The halo tiara caught the light from street lamps and camera flashes as their car approached Buckingham Palace. Catherine had learned to acknowledge the photographers and crowds with the perfect balance of warmth and dignity, understanding that these public moments were part of the service she provided. The tiara helped her feel worthy of the attention while reminding her that she was representing something much larger than herself. Inside the palace, the state rooms were already filled with dignitaries, diplomats, and other distinguished guests. Catherine moved through the receiving line with practiced ease, her training in royal protocol now so natural that she could focus entirely on making genuine connections with each person she met. The halo tiara seemed to give her an extra measure of confidence, its sparkle catching the light from the palace's magnificent chandeliers. The dinner itself was a masterpiece of diplomatic theater, with every detail carefully orchestrated to honor the visiting heads of state while showcasing British culture and hospitality. Catherine's seat at the table positioned her where she could engage with key guests while being visible to the cameras that would record this historic evening. The halo tiara photographed beautifully under the formal lighting, its geometric design perfectly complementing the palace's grand architecture. During the meal, Catherine found herself in conversation with the visiting queen, a woman who had also married into royalty from outside royal circles. They discussed the unique challenges and privileges of their roles, sharing insights about balancing public duties with private family life. The visiting queen complimented Catherine on the tiara, noting how perfectly it suited her and expressing admiration for how Catherine had grown into her royal role. These conversations reminded Catherine of how her experience might be valuable to other women entering royal families around the world. She had successfully navigated the transition from commoner to princess, and her example could provide guidance and inspiration to others facing similar challenges. The halo tiara had become part of that story, a symbol of successful integration into royal life. As the evening progressed through its carefully choreographed stages, dinner, speeches, musical entertainment, and informal conversations, Catherine felt a deep satisfaction in how naturally she could now handle such complex events. The nervous energy that had once accompanied state occasions had been replaced by quiet confidence and genuine enjoyment of the diplomatic and cultural exchange these events represented. The musical portion of the evening featured performances that celebrated both British and the visiting country's cultural heritage. Catherine listened with genuine appreciation, thinking about how these artistic exchanges built bridges between nations and peoples. The halo tiara seemed to capture and reflect the harmony of the moment, its diamonds sparkling in time with the music. During the informal reception that followed dinner, Catherine had the opportunity for more personal conversations with guests from around the world. She discovered shared interests with a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, discussed early childhood development with a pioneering educator, and exchanged thoughts about environmental conservation with a passionate young activist. These interactions reminded her why she found royal life fulfilling despite its challenges. It provided unprecedented opportunities to learn from remarkable people and to use her platform to highlight important causes. King Charles watched his daughter-in-law with obvious pride throughout the evening. Catherine had become exactly the kind of senior royal the monarchy needed, someone who could honor tradition while bringing fresh energy and authentic warmth to every interaction. The choice to wear the halo tiara for this occasion seemed perfect to him, as it represented both continuity with the past and confidence about the future. As the evening drew to a close, Catherine participated in the formal farewell ceremonies with the visiting dignitaries. The halo tiara had remained perfectly in place throughout the long evening, a testament to the skill of her dresser and the quality of the piece itself. She felt no fatigue from wearing it, only a continued sense of the dignity and purpose it helped her embody. The ride back to their residence gave Catherine and William time to decompress from the evening and share their observations about the event's success. They discussed the diplomatic implications of various conversations, the cultural significance of the evening's entertainment, and their appreciation for the palace staff who had made everything run so smoothly. These post-event conversations had become treasured moments of connection between them. Back in her dressing room, as Maria carefully removed the halo tiara and prepared it for its return to the royal collection, Catherine felt a moment of reluctance to let it go. The tiara had become such an integral part of her most significant moments that removing it felt like stepping out of her royal role and back into ordinary life. But she had learned that this transition was important too. She needed to be able to move between her public and private selves with equal grace. As she prepared for bed, Catherine reflected on how the evening had represented everything she had learned about royal service over more than a decade. The ability to represent her country with dignity, to make meaningful connections with people from different cultures and backgrounds, to use her platform to highlight important causes, and to do all of this while remaining true to her own values and personality. These are the skills that the halo tiara had come to symbolize for her. Looking ahead, Catherine could see many more occasions when the tiara would play a role in her story. Future state visits, significant anniversaries, and other historic moments would all provide opportunities for it to continue serving as a bridge between past and future, tradition and innovation. She might even wear it at William's coronation, whenever that day might come, creating another chapter in its remarkable history. The tiara would also eventually be passed down to the next generation, just as it had been passed from the Queen Mother to Queen Elizabeth to Catherine. She thought about Princess Charlotte, who had shown such fascination with royal jewelry, and wondered if someday her daughter might wear this same piece to mark her own important moments. The idea of that continuity, of being part of an unbroken chain of service and tradition, gave Catherine a profound sense of purpose and connection to something larger than herself. But, for now, the halo tiara would return to its place in the collection, waiting for the next occasion when its particular combination of beauty, history, and significance would be needed. Catherine had added another chapter to its story tonight, just as it had added another layer of meaning to hers. Together, the woman and the tiara had created moments that would be remembered and studied by future generations, examples of how tradition could evolve while maintaining its essential character. As Catherine finally settled into bed, she carried with her the satisfaction of an evening well-served and the quiet confidence that came from knowing she had grown into her role completely. The halo tiara had been there at the beginning of her royal journey, and it would continue to mark the most significant moments as her story continued to unfold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, and Catherine would face them with the same grace, dignity, and authenticity that had made tonight such a success. The legacy of the Cartier Halo Tiara was not just about its exquisite craftsmanship or its impressive monetary value. It was about the women who had worn it and the moments they had created while doing so. Catherine had become an essential part of that legacy, and through her, the tiara would continue to serve as a symbol of royal duty, personal growth, and the enduring power of tradition to inspire and guide each new generation of those called to serve.